Welcome back to ET with GOTB. 2026 is upon us and there is already so much to talk about. Let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Happy New Year, etc. I feel like it's probably too late to say that now. It's already the 12th of January.
I think you can say it till the end of January, really.
It's the end of January?
Yeah, because you're meeting new people all the time. So
if you see someone you haven't seen, you can say it?
Yeah, I think so. And then once January ends, you stop.
Okay.
I don't know the rules, but that's my rule anyway.
This is our first time talking to you guys.
I keep forgetting about it.
About saying it?
Yeah, and then I go back and say it.
It's because we spent the first week of January in a cabin away from all people.
It's like Sonia Bonpastor in the press conference after the game yesterday. She was walked out the door and said, "Happy New Year, I should have led with that."
Well, we've led with it now and
yeah.
We won't say it again. Right, we are back. Had a nice break.
We did.
I really enjoyed our break.
Nice 3-week break. Lots of Christmas stuff.
Lots of family time, which I really enjoyed.
Time. And a trip to Norway.
New Year's Eve in Stockholm and a week in Norway.
Yeah,
and then
very cold, -10.
We came home. We are parents. Cat parents. Surprise cat parents. Somewhat surprised. Yeah. It's very rare that there's an unexpected fur babies or babies in the life of lesbians, but here we are. Yeah, sadly your grandma passed away.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of this year, and we have taken in her cats.
We have. So. We are bonding, trying to get them used to the environment.
Yeah.
And to us.
Still fairly new in the relationship.
Yeah. You have proceeded to pick one of them up, so
I did. Actually.
That's a progress.
It is. I'm not really a cat person. Neither of us really are. So
right. You say that, and there you are, like talking to him, like with your face at his face level, having a chat and running around the table. And,
that's totally
and
normal.
chasing.
My point is, we never planned to get them.
We didn't.
We never planned to get cats. Hopefully it doesn't put a dent in the dog plans, but if they do join, I have already had one of them walk across my keyboard during the press conference with Liverpool during the week, so that was a little bit embarrassing. So do not be surprised if they appear. Should we talk about some football?
Yes.
Okay. As ever, we are going to look at the WSL this weekend. We're going to look at the WSL 2 scores and table of the games that we're on, because Storm, Italian name, Garotti, Jeffrey, what was it called? Someone can tell us. Some Storm.
Big Storm.
Played havoc. Absolutely. We will do Player of the Week. Mm-hmm. And you will also give me a standout moment of the week.
Yes.
And we'll also have a quick chat about transfer news thus far, and also what we're doing this weekend regarding the FA Cup, which I'm looking forward to. Before we get into all of that, do make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening or wherever you're watching this podcast, and do make sure you're following us across all of our socials. We are at Girls on the Ball on everything. And subscribe to us on Substack as well. We're kicking that back off again.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back into the flow.
Yeah, I always find that quite tricky.
I find restarting really tricky. Like just getting back into a rhythm to do things.
As much as I enjoy the break though, I really do hope the winter break stays forever, which I don't think it will.
I know there's been some discourse on it, but for me it has to stay. I mean we can talk about it another time maybe, but in terms of the players' welfare as well, players like having, not having enough, being paid enough to bring their families over to live here as they do in the men's game, or like buy a house here. So a lot of them can be in like shared accommodation and stuff, and to go home at Christmas I think is really, really valuable, both for the mind and for the physical side of it, because the game's getting so busy these days that having a little break I think is probably really, really useful. Especially with all the back-to-back tournaments that have been happening of late. It is definitely very beneficial for player welfare point of view. So, but we'll see how long it lasts. Anyway, let's crack on, because this weekend was all set to kick off very excitingly with Arsenal versus Manchester United at the Emirates, third against fourth, the battle for the Champions League kind of kicking off 2026, and we were really hoping that this was going to kind of set 2026 alight football-wise, but not to be, as it ended 0-0. Now normally I would tell you about all the goal scorers. There were none. Aston Villa 2, Brighton 1. That was a little bit more exciting, but they kept all of that excitement in a very short space of time. Sonada with her first goal, Daly and Hansen scoring as well. Chelsea 5, West Ham 0.
Endo on goal, James Thompson and Baltimore with a brace. Manchester City 2, Everton 0, Carolyn and Miedema with the goals. Spurs 1, Leicester 0. An Ashley Neville own goal, you couldn't write it. And Liverpool 0, London City 0. It was really bookended this weekend with quite slightly less dramatic goalless draws, although I will say perhaps the last one a lot less exciting compared to the Arsenal and Manchester United one. It does mean that the WSL table kind of remains the same to some degree. Manchester City sitting on top on 33 points, Chelsea on 27 points, Arsenal are on 23 points in third, Spurs are just behind them on goal difference, also on 23 points, and Manchester United have dropped into fifth on 22 points, not much separating those three. At the bottom, Liverpool picked up a point, so they are still down there, but they're on 4 points, and West Ham are above on 5. So, as I said, 1 or 2 small changes. Liverpool ever so slowly catching up on West Ham, and it seems like West Ham are currently letting them. Okay, let's kick off with the first 0-0 draw of the weekend. Arsenal versus Manchester United. Teed up, you know, as a big one, an important one of the almost like the last gasp if either of them wanted to mount any sort of title challenge. They needed to win this, and so neither did. Shocker. And I fear slightly kind of some same old problems in terms of Arsenal dominating possession, Arsenal creating more of the chances, not being able to put them in the back of the net. Manchester United maybe not offering too much going forward, although they did have a very good chance early on. And then, of course, had to play 25 minutes with 10. And arguably, as a team who are very well drilled defensively and tend to be very good defensively and very difficult to score against, were arguably more difficult to score against with 10. Players like Dominique Janssen, she stood out for me, particularly Maya Letizier as well, and Sandberg as well, I thought was very good. So it was a good display in that respect, but it never felt like they were doing very much to get forward.
Yeah, so Arsenal completely dominated in attacking statistics. They had like 63 touches in the box.
Like United's 8, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. Like 25 shots, but only 6 on target. An XG of over 2.8, I think. So they really control proceedings, and they'll be really frustrated that they couldn't make that count. And that's been the theme of their season so far. They've been creating chances. They can control the ball. They just haven't put games to bed. And while they have a really good unbeaten home run, which has lasted, over a year now? Or about a year now? No, over a year it must have been.
Yeah, because 2025 was...
Leggers took over in October or something. So it's been since she's been in charge. So I think, that would be the worry, because that has been the theme of the season, that they can't find a way to put things away. I do think there were a couple of reasons behind it. I think it was a bit like the beginning of the season. Chelsea Man City, well, that was a really interesting game. I understand wanting like a big bang to come back after a break, but actually you can have those big moments at other times of the season, and these big games I think don't always deliver when they are like the first games and second games. That's not to say that they shouldn't happen. I know scheduling happens, and it's not to preference those teams.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that when you are lining up an Arsenal Manchester United fixture and you're thinking about what can happen, I think the break probably doesn't help that in those respects.
True.
I also think that unfortunately Cara Cooney-Cross couldn't be there, and thoughts are with her for what she's going through with her mum, and
it's very difficult.
And it's good that she's been giving all the time she needs, but it does. Arsenal's momentum before the break was looking really good, and I remember the game against Everton where Cara came in and she was performing really well, and it allowed Mariona to go into the 10, and it just freed up the creativity. Mariona can do everything, and we know that she can work really hard and do everything, but Arsenal need Mariona in the best position possible to do whatever she can do to impact the play and impact goals, and at the moment she's having to drop too deep into the kind of midfield and do that kind of defensive side of things a bit too much. So they've had to revert back to that, obviously, with the absence of Cooney-Cross, to maybe a few little things. But I think it was just quite clear the connections weren't quite there yet.
Yeah, and I think as much as some fans are desperate to pin the blame on one person, I don't actually think it was any single player's fault. I think everyone was a little bit rusty. Like, first touches weren't there. You know, some of the shots skying them over the bar, not even getting them on target. You know, passes slightly too hard, players offside. And I do find it quite frustrating that the narratives after games tend to be hijacked by who the favourite player is or who the least favourite player is, and that player then gets either all the praise or all the blame, which I find quite frustrating because
it's
it
not
then
actually looking at the football sometimes.
No, and it limits a kind of proper kind of chat and debate that you can have about it, because people just come wading in going, well, it's because F player's shit, and you're like, okay, well, it's not. Like, let's try and think more broadly about it and not just kind of suit it to fit whoever you like or don't like, which I find quite frustrating. I just think a lot of players just weren't on form, to be honest.
And I think in terms of Man United, I interviewed Mark Skinner after the game, and he was clearly pretty disappointed with the way that they performed. They played really well for the first 10-15 minutes, really on the front foot. The press was there. They were pressing Arsenal high, causing problems in that back line. Rolf came really close, got that really good fingertip save from Borba to deny them. And then they just dropped off and ran out of energy, and they never found it back. And Arsenal just grew and grew and grew in momentum. And I asked him why that was in that first half, and he said, you know, it was because we were giving them way too much space. We were dropping. We weren't connecting with the challenges. We weren't connecting with them when they had the ball. We were letting them advance, and you can't do that against a team like Arsenal. So he was really frank and honest.
The last time that happened at the Emirates, they lost 3-0. Do you remember their press just was non-existent? It is worth pointing out. It's worth pointing out Ella Toon as well, not available, has an injury.
And I think you could see how key she is. And I know she also gets a lot of grief a lot of the time, but I think she doesn't get recognised, as a lot of players don't, for the out of possession and the kind of tenacious side of her game that allows Man United to, you know, set chances, win the ball back, set chances, and start attacks and stuff like that. So I think he was pretty disappointed with the way that they faded. He was very proud, though, of the way that they defended when they went down to 10.
Yeah, Fallon Lewis-Joyce as well, excellent in goal.
Yeah, Fallon Lewis-Joyce. Mel Letizier had a really good header, I think, and a couple of really good blocks in that back line. Dominique Hanson was superb. She was given the player of the match. She probably was-ish, I think. But she was really good. The way that she managed to stop Russo doing her signature move every time.
And Blackstenius.
Because Russo loves to have her back to the defender and do that like touch on the outside of the boot and turn them. Yeah. And she was so aware of that and cutting her off every time. So she had a really good game. And we know that United can defend. They're a really, really good defensive unit. And they were able to revert and drop deep and revert and kind of block the spaces.
Yes. Yeah, it was tight, well drilled, well organised, and they know that Arsenal are a team that struggle to break that down.
But they will be very disappointed at the way that they offered very little.
Yeah. In attack. And I don't think that Jade Riviere 2 yellows was in any way controversial. I think it was the right decision. So in terms of like...
Mark himself was like, can't argue with that.
Yeah.
You know, we gave them the referee a decision to make. It was 2 yellow card challenges. She knew as soon as she was a yellow, she was walking on a tightrope. So you can't fly in like that.
Renee Slaggers, of course, was offered a new contract earlier on in the week. Right decision, you think?
I maintain it's the most important piece of business. I think Arsenal will do this winter season.
Getting her, or just confirming the manager, if you know what I mean?
I think it would be hugely unfair not to take her. Mm-hmm. She did the unthinkable last year. She came in, you know, had to galvanise the squad who were playing pretty, like, confidence was really low when Jonas left. They had a run of disastrous games. And I think it's only natural that, you know, a manager goes on to win something like that in their first season. You've not really planned for it. You haven't built for it. It just sort of happens. And it's one of those things, I mean, you've seen it, I guess, in the men's game a couple of times, like Chelsea, when they won their Champions League the first time. You know, they were never meant to win that. Even the second time, they were never meant to win those Champions League. But there was this kind of run of form, galvanised by the change of manager, that kind of led them to that point where they get victory. And it just sort of happens that you find your groove in a competition and find a way and find a team spirit. I think...
How do they get out of this hole they're in now?
I think there has to be a bit of a rebuild.
So we saw Smilla Holmberg come in.
Smilla Holmberg.
And she looked...
But I think longer term, I think there has to be a bit of a rebuild. There are clear areas where Arsenal fall down. I think in central midfield, the fact that the only option at the moment seems to be... I know Vic Pullover is on the bench, but she's more of an attacking midfielder anyway. The only option seems to be to have Mariona drop deep, drop deeper and work with Kim Little, and kind of sacrifice her creativity. I think you need to find a solution to that for if, another midfielder gets injured. I think that's a big problem. I think there's defensive, you can definitely
I think all over the park they need to improve. And I think they've held on to players for a long time.
And there are players there who have been at the club a long time and probably running out of their contract, and they just need to think about what that project looks like long term. But getting Renee Sleggers on board, a young coach, she does need to be given time. She has proven that she can get a team playing good football. They're in a bit of a rut at the moment in terms of that creativity wise. But then I think about the last block of the year where they were really, really good, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting bored trying to understand it, so if they could get out of it, it'd be great. Just give us something to talk about.
But I just think that if you're also attracting players to a project, having a manager tied down to a proper contract, 18 months was always a bit weird.
Yeah.
And it was never enough.
We are going to talk a little bit later about some of the transfers that have come through and the big names, but I do think it's worth talking about the fact that Schuller and Lundqvist came on and both looked impactful, even though they weren't on for a very long time.
Yeah, I felt sorry for Leah Schuller because she came on and they went down to 10. And
4-4-1.
Yeah, and then she can't do what she's there
but
to
still,
do.
I think
she worked hard.
She's an very exciting prospect and a very exciting signing, as is Lundqvist as well.
Lundqvist is very sweet. I had to interview her afterwards too.
Yeah, you had to do it for Swedish TV.
I had to do, Lundqvist for Swedish TV, which was a very awkward situation because I can't understand much Swedish at all. And I had to ask her the questions in English and she had to reply in Swedish. Obviously, I don't know what she's saying, so I apologised if there was any repetition. And at the end, I said "tack" at the end. And got a smile out of her, and she said that must have been really confusing for you. And I was like, yes, it was. But she was very sweet, and I think she's got a good future ahead of her at United.
Absolutely, and it was great to actually see them get on.
Also, much needed depth in that position, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, hopefully there isn't anything we've missed there, but I'm sure fans will tell us if there is, when we don't touch on absolutely everything. Okay, the game you covered was Chelsea-West Ham. Possibly the worst start for Rita Guarino. We spoke to her during the Euros, didn't we? This was the news that Rhian Skinner obviously got sacked just before Christmas, but not after their League Cup games before that. So they got a pretty heavy drubbing in that. And I know we didn't really talk about this decision. It's probably not as surprising as, say, a Jocelyn Pressure getting sacked. But for me, I just feel like West Ham never have an extended period of stability, whether it's a chunk of players leaving or a manager getting the boot. It just always seems like they're kind of constantly on a wobble. And it must be quite frustrating for players to have any sort of just wrap your head around a style of play or a project or anything, because it's never long. It's like 6 months and something changes, or one season and the relationships you built are gone because the players are gone, or the style that a manager is trying to bring in is gone because it's frustrating, but probably not a huge surprise.
So however, what I'm about to say is nothing against Rita, because she has no control over what happened before she arrived at the football club. But I do think the board need to really look at themselves and ask what they are expecting, because Rhian Skinner was sacked because performances and results weren't good enough. And that's fair in terms of where they are in the table and the fact that they only got one win this season. But performances actually weren't that bad, I'll have to say that. In terms of they were creating chances, they just weren't taking them. There were lacks of concentration at the back as well. And yes, that comes from the manager, and the manager is the one who takes the flak for that. But I do think that West Ham have done not nearly enough to support their women's football team over the years.
What are the expectations?
And you can't have expectations to really compete in the WSL properly if you aren't willing to invest properly in the team and the infrastructure around it. And it's only been it was the summer before last, that Rhian Skinner made that call to try and have some long-term contracts, because she found that every season she was losing half her players because they were on short-term contracts and they were going to bigger clubs and different opportunities. So she addressed that a bit, but I do think the club really need to look at themselves to see what they actually want in the game, because they're never going to get any long-term progress unless they are able to give Rita the kind of support and investment and resources that she needs to be able to do something with this football club. She can't do it on her own.
No, but and Rianne also spoke about the various areas in the club that she was trying to improve and build and make more professional, and that's another level of commitment that a manager has to take on their shoulders, as well as managing the team, and it kind of goes unnoticed because we don't see it. So, and
it's always the first response, right? Something goes well, sack the manager.
Something goes well.
Something.
Don't do that.
No, not when something goes right. Something goes wrong, sack the manager instantly. Or not. I know Rianne had a bit of time and probably actually lasted longer than many of us thought, but it's a sticking plaster over a wider problem, and we saw it at Brighton for many years, where they would just get rid of managers and they'd be yo-yoing up and down the league, and never really get into the position the board expected them to be, where they're challenging for titles or Champions League
this spots. Is it. I'd love to know what the expectation is and what the time frame is, because people think this shit happens overnight, and it just doesn't. You're gonna have shit seasons, and you're gonna have a season where you do really well, like Aston Villa, and then you're gonna have a season where you're dicing with relegation, like Aston Villa. It's happened with a number of clubs, and that's gonna happen, and you're gonna have to go through that as a squad to then try and improve and learn out your weaknesses and learn what's going wrong and learn how to make things right and learn how to deal with difficult times, instead of just pulling the rug out every time something like that happens, and then you have to start all over again. And then players start thinking, oh my god, we've lost this many games in a row. Are we going to end up like having a manager sacked? Are we going to end up having to move clubs? You start then creating that fear of failure and fear of not playing well. And I just think it's a short league, there's not enough investment. So expecting a team to do wondrous things, and I'm not saying like that was going to happen with West Ham necessarily, I just mean generally with these teams, you can't expect them in 2, 3 or 4 seasons to do massive things.
There are very clear reasons why the project goes wrong. They get in some really good players, don't get me wrong, and they, the acquisition of like Katrina Gorey was a really good one. Asai is a brilliant player, she's just out of form at the moment. Shakira Martinez, another one. Anouk Denton
won't be there long.
Yeah, is on her way out, I
Tiziak.
think. Amber Tiziak, as well, also reported to be on her way out. But they are currently like a production club, and that, when they had the likes of Hana Kobayashi, Yu Hasegawa, Risa Shimizu, they're like the starting point, and then they move on.
Yeah.
It's like and then they look to sell them on. You can't develop really with a project with that, and you have to be starting to invest in players long term and of high quality.
Players need to be able to believe in a project.
To be able to compete in this league, and you have to be able to do what Chelsea do, and kind of put that kind of level of resource behind things to be able to do that. So I like, and the fact that they haven't even played it, like, I know it's a small thing, but the London Stadium, like the fact that they're not able to play there ever, is just a kind of sign, I think, of a small sign of the commitment or lack of the team. That being said,
let's talk about the game.
Can
I ask you, while we wouldn't have expected West Ham to beat Chelsea necessarily, particularly with Rita's first game in charge, it was the nature of the defeat that frustrated you.
Yeah, and I had to, I progressed my veins of thought throughout the game. In the first 10-15 minutes, I was like, this is not good. This is really bad. There was no press. There was a lack of energy from West Ham. There was a clear lack of confidence, and I think that was the problems for the whole thing. Certainly conceding a goal in the first minute does not help. But I do want
mistake as well.
2 big defensive errors. I think I do want to though say something about Rita needs to be given time to deal with this. She's been in the club a matter of weeks. She's just been learning how to get used to her players, learning what kind of suits them, what their kind of skills are. She needs to be allowed 2, 3, 4 windows to build a squad to suit the style of football that she wants to play. She said that she has great faith in her players and that, they are really, really good quality players. They just had lack of misunderstandings or lacks of concentration in the key moments that led to Chelsea. And I think Chelsea just got head of steam and started.
And that's it. When they're a team that gets an early goal and they smell blood, and they had a brilliant end to the season. Beating Liverpool 9-0
Yeah.
9-0, 9-1, 9-1, like, you know, getting that many goals really gets
9-1, I think.
Yeah, gets the confidence up. You've got LJ back scoring, you've got Hannah Hampton back in the squad, you know, and they are a team that just like
they love this time of year as well.
Yes, and when the things start when the heat's on, when the confidence is up, it just elevates everyone in the squad. And you know, not that, and you know, we've seen in last season they self-admitted they didn't play their best football all the time, and sometimes that's a confidence thing, and it was the mentality that got them through. But equally, when things then start to go right, you can just see everyone like grows 2 feet taller.
They were so efficient, and that's been lacking this season
Yeah.
at times for Chelsea. But against West Ham, they were certainly super efficient, and they took their chances when they came. They probably could have had more, but they did. You know, they scored 5 goals, and that was enough. And 2 of them were really, really good goals as well. So I think that will give them so much confidence. Sonia Bonpastor was obviously they're chasing down the 6-point lead that Manchester City have at the top of the table. It's going to be really, really hard because City don't look like they're going to slip up at all at the moment.
Oh, don't jinx it.
But
City fans will curse.
This is what Chelsea do and historically have always done. And even they normally got their noses front, but even when they're behind, they will just hunt. They're going to hunt Manchester City down, and they've done it before, and they will believe fully that they can do it again.
Yes, absolutely. A great start for them. Okay, we need to touch on the Estelle Cascarino, who came in for West Ham.
Really?
I'm just going to touch on it because you know we'll get a comment from someone saying you didn't talk about it. And the earring debacle. So what happened was she was due to come on at half time. Referee told her she couldn't come on with the earring even though it was taped up. I had no idea that like the rules were that strict. I swear I've seen players with taped up earrings and rings on before, but obviously that's a change in the rules. And it was difficult because they then had to get someone around to the dressing room where the player that had come off at half time was to tell them you need to come back on the pitch.
Inez Bellamy had to rush back on.
God,
She was
love her.
Still putting her boots on, and she got to the other side
Yeah,
to come
so
back on to
that
make
was
up
a
the
tricky
numbers.
situation. But Jesus, I did not expect actual articles to be written about it, for Christ's
No, me
sakes.
neither. It was
Because
like,
can I just say, Rita said afterwards, and like, you know, yeah, you should know the rules that you shouldn't wear jewellery. But if you've come from Italy where it was fine to be taped up, and you've played in the Champions League where it's fine to be taped up, it's not that big a friggin' deal if you didn't realise. Like, we both have earrings like that have to be taken out with tools.
Yeah, Rachel
and I forget.
Garino's,
I got in a friggin' MRI machine once, and I completely forgot that I had that on. Like, you forget they're there because they're literally part of you, and you never have to take them in or out. But I did not expect articles to be written about it, to be totally honest.
Yeah, and the problem was it was one of these kind of earrings, I think, where you have to go into into the earpiece in place to get them taken off. You can't take them off yourself. So I just think a lot has been made of it. Yes, it was silly. Yes, it was a mistake. Mistakes happen. We've seen a lot worse mistakes in the game in this
Visa-gate.
Yeah, but like also just stuff happens, right? We're human. Errors happen.
Literally, it was an embarrassment. Like one of the commentators in one of the articles was saying, "I'm glad she didn't get on because it was a terrible mistake to make." I'm like, Jesus Christ!
But also, it's not an indictment on the women's game. Stuff happens in the men's game, in the women's game. Like,
we had people in our comments
happen.
saying, "You don't know what could have happened in the game. You can't say these things with the hindsight." I'm like, they're 4-0 down. What the fuck do you think she was going to come on and score a hat-trick?
It objectively didn't change the course of the game. It would have been nice for Estelle and for West Ham to get her debut. She is only in England for 11 league games, and see how far they go because she's on loan.
Oh, okay,
so obviously they would have wanted her to get 45 minutes to get her into the league and not have to postpone
against Chelsea, no less.
Yeah, and get her up to speed. And now she only has 10 games instead of 10 and a half. But things happen. It's just the nature of life, and I really don't understand. I understand people commenting on it. I even put it in my match report. I commented the fact that it happened.
That's fine.
It was a strange thing to happen.
Yes.
But I don't think we need like think pieces or like an OTT reaction to it.
But also, I learned something new. I had no idea that the rules were different in Italy and the Champions League to England. So there you go. Don't wear earrings,
I think
kids.
technically the rules are the same, but it's how they're implemented.
I swear the fellas all wear rings and have the type on their fingers.
Don't think so.
They definitely have in the past. Anyway, there we are. There will be no... Actually, don't some clubs have bloody jewellery brand deals? I need to rethink that, in my opinion. Okay, moving on to Spurs Leicester, which is the game I was at. I think Spurs deserved this win, although it was only 1-0. And then you rightly pointed out that Leicester had more shots on target than Spurs did, which is true. They had 3. But Spurs definitely created a lot more. And they were, honest to God, like I was shooting and I'd see someone go in for the ball and I'm like, okay, it's obviously going to be a goal, so I'll keep the goal score on my lens. And then you just see them go, oh. I'm like, the amount of pictures I have of people doing that, where you're like, I haven't seen how it didn't go in because I'm so like focused on my lens. But I'm like, how the fuck did that not go in? So there was a couple of those moments for them. And Leicester, of course, quite happy to absorb Spurs' pressure and then, you know, go at them on the counter. And I think that almost worked a few times. Super impressed with Signa Gupset, who is one of their star signings of the January window. I knew she was coming. I told you in May when I saw her in Bran. I said, remember the name. She obviously had a good breakout at the Euros.
I don't know if there's ever been a more obvious transfer as that one.
For us, maybe, not for everyone else.
But I think Martin Ho was always going to try and bring Signa Gupset over.
And he told me that that was her at 30 to 40%, so that's quite frightening. She got player of the match as well, so what a start for her. There were also like lovely moments of just like liquid footballs, fluidity between Holt, Finberg, Gupset, England. I thought they were linking up really nicely, little 1-2 touches, little triangles. Like, you know, I thought some of the football they were playing was really nice, deserved more goals. But I think that kind of silky football, to have those flashes of those moments in the first game back in 2026, you know, including a new player as well, is quite exciting for them. But yeah, it was a pretty enjoyable game, even though there was only 1 goal. You know, Leicester has ever made it difficult. Probably could have scored themselves.
Well, they actually registered more shots on target. So.
I know, I've already pointed that out because you've already made that point to me earlier, even though I was at the game. I mean, you couldn't write the script of Ashley Neville, lifelong Spurs player, OG, been there forever and ever, literally left this week to go to Leicester, and now they have to play each other back to back, which is typical. That seems to happen to Tottenham a lot, and she scored a bloody own goal.
Yeah,
you'd just be like,
you feel fair as well.
They did have a lovely moment at the end though, where the Tottenham team made a guard of honour, including all the staff, for Ash to come off, and she received a signed shirt, framed with a load of photos and a bunch of flowers as well, and the fans were singing and she was pretty emotional. It was really lovely.
I really hope Leicester bring in I mean, I know expectations have to be managed, but a forward with a good goal scoring history. I think if they have a number 9,
there's so many teams who need that.
No, I know, but like someone, obviously you're not going to get the Alessi Russos of the world. You have to be pragmatic about that. But there will be a striker somewhere in, I mean, you know, the Nordic and Scandinavian leagues are the places to go at the moment.
Because they're in
talent,
their break, that's
or
why.
Japan. And you find yourself a striker who can at least, I think that's the main thing that they've been missing, because Mouchon has been in and out of injury, came back for a bit, looked quite good, you know, scored within 10 minutes of coming on after returning from an ACL, but then got injured again. And you can't, you know, when she's not there, they don't have an out-and-out number 9. They were playing Emily Van Egmond up front, I think, or whether she was in the 10 and being supported by the 2 wingers. You know, it's kind of a not ideal situation.
Or go have a sniff around at number 9s who are sitting on the bench and not getting enough game time, who maybe need some low minutes.
Or like young number 9s who are doing really well at youth level.
You make it sound so easy.
Yeah, it's not.
Just go and get a number 9.
No, it's not easy, but I think when we look at last year and this time last year, and they were having so many injuries in the striking department, they didn't have a striker, an out-and-out forward, a recognised number 9. Mouchon got her ACL quite early on in that season. Then they lost Petterman in the summer, and Petterman to injury last season as well. And they've never been able to replace them. And I think that, you need to really start. That's probably the main area of focus, because I think you're being quite stable and solid elsewhere on the pitch. But
if you're going to rely on counter-attacks, you need to have someone who can be efficient with the ball when you get it. Also worth pointing out, Yanis came in, gone. Sarah Manning came in on loan. And she started as well with Ash Neville, and I thought she looked really good. She looked, because she's, you know, promising when she goes forward, offers a lot defensively, but she looked really promising coming forward. So it'd be interesting to see Leicester against those teams in and around them, because they gave Spurs a bit of a fight, and Spurs are sitting.
We know they
joint.
can defend.
Well, not joint, but in 4th place. You know,
we know they can crowd their box and protect that pretty well. Yes, they concede, but they've done pretty good performances in that respect.
So while I was at that game, I was listening to Aston Villa Brighton in my ears, which I wanted to watch back, but I couldn't because there was nowhere to watch it. So great having all the games at the same time. Sounded a little bit topsy-turvy to a degree at the beginning because it felt like, or it sounded like at least, that Brighton started the better in terms of a combination of them pressing Villa well as they were playing out from the back, but also Villa insisting on playing out from the back when it wasn't working. And literally that's where the first goal came from. Terrible ball, I'm sorry, Sab, who, by the way, I was listening to it on BBC Radio Sussex, and the commentator called her Dan Galo the whole fucking game, and he kept saying her name a lot. I'm sorry, but once is one thing, but because Dan Galo had been involved in so much of the ball being passed around the back and nearly being left short by players, and Dan Galo again, and then Dan Galo with the save, and I was like, oh my god, this is actually the most, the weirdest, and look, we don't pronounce everyone's names right, I'm sure you'll correct us, but anyway, I've just thought, you know how I feel about this, and to be honest, Brighton are normally the team who are the ones who play out from the back when they shouldn't, or at least take the pressure off every now and then. But that's where the first goal came from.
I'm intrigued to see what happens with Brighton, because history tells us they don't stick with coaches, and I really hope that's not the case, because I do think we've seen a lot of development under Dario.
They do have injuries as well on the team.
Well, they do, but they also need to recruit another forward, that's for sure, after Michel Adjiman's injury. And that has to be a priority, of that kind of quality, I think, as well. Someone just coming into this league. You need someone of that kind of high quality. But I do hope, because I don't know, I'm just reminded of this time last year where Brighton started the year really, really badly. And they went to Liverpool, was it, in the first game, and they lost their...
They didn't win until March or something.
Yeah, and they went on that bad run, and then they beat Arsenal in the second last game of the season, and it all looked a bit rosier.
And nobody wanted to take 6th off them, do you remember?
Yeah, but they were, up there, and then in 8th now, I think?
Yeah.
So a bit of maybe alarm bells going on there, and they need Fran Kirby to be back really, really fit. I know she's come back in, but... she has been in and out with injury, and she is the linchpin of that team. Yeah,
I think Aston Villa have had kind of problems with the consistency, I think, not just across the season, but in 90 minutes of football. I do think they were unlucky not to score more, even in the first half. Rachel Daly, lovely header off the woodwork, and then at another kind of lovely bit of movement from, I think it was Kirsty Hansen, swept it into her in first touch, and it just hit the post, and you just thought, oh my god, it's not going to happen. But no, there was a crazy 90 seconds in the 57th and 58th minute where Aston Villa went ahead through a Rachel Daly goal, deserved, and then an absolute worldie from Kirsty Hansen, who's on some vein of form at the moment and seems to be scoring only bangers. She's up to second in the goal scoring table as well.
And you're now just taking my moment of the week, so...
Oh, well, you can expand on it. And I'm going to clip it up anyway.
Okay.
You're going to clip it up, so you're just going to have to say it again and pretend then that I didn't. Yeah, so, I mean, Villa will be delighted that they managed to turn that around. Natalia Arroyo talks a lot about being brave and the reaction from her team in those moments, because she always admits, we're going to have moments in games where it's difficult or we're behind, and it's actually about how we react to those things. And those moments are the ones that stand to you when you're playing a team like a Chelsea or an Arsenal and they score early. You need to be able to draw on that kind of experience. So, as you say, difficult day for Brighton. Aston Villa have now leapfrogged them and London City to go into 6th.
And that chasing group aren't going to get the top 5. There's 8 points between them and top 5, but it is now the battle of who can finish in that 6th.
Best of the rest.
The best of the rest. But I think a 6th place finish for Arroyo in her second season isn't actually all that... I mean, it's progress. It's not all that bad.
Given what they went through last season.
Yeah, I think, where they were and what they're trying to build now, I think it's not... And then hopefully you can then build that on to make a chase for the top 5 next season.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to Manchester City. Everton... City are starting the year as they finished 2025. Always going to be a tough day at the office for Everton. They had to absorb a lot Manchester City with 32 shots, 13 on target. Courtney Brosnan made 11 saves, which is ridiculous, especially when they then go and lose 2-0. So it definitely could have been more. I know there was some frustration. Carolyn got them ahead, I think deservedly so. Everton did create some opportunities early on in the first half, and there was that kind of controversy, if you like, of Fernandez scoring.
I mean, it was a goal.
It was a goal. It should have been a goal. It was deemed a foul.
It might not have ultimately changed the outcome, but at that point in time, it would have made it 1-1.
And I think this idea that it changed the outcome or was super controversial in terms of the result of the game. I mean, you've had 13 shots on target.
But then you also never know. Like, we've seen what Everton did against Chelsea when they got their goal. So I think in that situation, going in at 1-1 is a different kettle of fish. And yes, Manchester City are a superb, dynamic, attacking team. They created so much. They had an XG of 4 point something or other. 32 chances created, 13 on target. So, like, really, really good, and they look really good attack. Like that front four of Carolyn, Viv, Bunny Shaw, and Lauren Hemp just look like magic when they get firing. And I'm not taking anything away from them, but you just never know situations in games and how things happen. But I do want to shout out Carolyn, first of all. I think she was superb. Not seen much of her this season. Obviously, she came back from the summer, the Copa America, kind of
with a niggle.
She came back with a niggle, but also like the end of the Copa America was really late compared, like it's a week later than the Euros. So it took her some time to get adjusted. Had a niggle, then had various issues, I think, injury-wise. So only really came back just before Christmas. And so now she looks like she's back to her best, I think, and she injects so much pace down that right-hand side. And it's really, really like got some dazzling footwork as well.
Yeah.
And then also on the Everton side, I want to shout out both Courtney Brosnan, of course, as you mentioned, but also Honoka Hayashi, who I think is a criminally underrated player. Midfielder, never stops running, never stops working, tenacious. I just love watching her play, just everything that she gives to a team.
I think as well, despite losing 2-0, I thought Ruby Mace and Fernandez played some good football. That team is a lot to handle. You can't mark one player out. You can't mark Bunny Shaw out of the game because Miedema will score or Lauren Hemp will score, and there's so many weapons in that Man City team, and they can score from anywhere now. As you said, they're so dynamic; they can just pull you apart. So, despite the loss, I thought there was some good defensive work from those two. And I think they said that Ruby Mace has now played more minutes at Everton than she had during her time at Manchester City.
I mean, in hindsight, that move.
Yeah.
Wasn't ideal, I guess.
There was a downside though of Katja Snoys, who pulled up with what looked like either an Achilles or a calf injury off the ball as well. Like she was chasing a ball and she just stopped and went down, and there was a lot.
Hope if it is a question between the two, calf is much better than Achilles, because that's an absolute.
Deanne Rose was out for ages with that.
I remember Callum Hudson-Odoi doing it for Chelsea, and just
it takes so long.
He never came back.
It's terrible. So I really hope it's not that. And there was a lot of concern both from her own team but also from Manchester. You know, it's bad when the opposition team are down comforting the player. Like, it's as lovely as it is to see that kind of camaraderie, you're just like, fuck, this is going to be a bad one. So
wishing her the best.
Yeah, hopefully it's not as bad as it looked. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Miedema Shaw link up the other way around this time.
And I mean, I described it in my talking point this week as telepathic.
Yeah.
And they are getting to that level, and it just shows what a run of games where they're both fit. And Bunny Shaw wasn't firing on all cylinders yesterday. She missed a few chances that you would think she would take. She was getting herself in good positions, but she just wasn't quite Bunny Shaw in front of goal. But even when that happens, she can turn provider, and the dink pass was just beautiful. Yeah,
and then the takedown on the chest as well was lovely. But there was a nice piece before the game that Manchester City, Sky Sports did with Miedema and Shaw, and about the roles and about playing with each other, and they did like a little bit of a masterclass type thing. But Miedema said that it's a privilege to be able to just sit behind those players in front of her and just like find them with balls, because she knows.
And I think that someone of her quality, like we've all seen Viv play for so many years, and you can tell that she sees the pictures on the pitch before many other players out there, and that's what you want from a 10 or that kind of creative player. And she can just see what the other players are doing probably a second before they actually do it.
Yeah.
And so that's how she gets that instinct to get those passes out.
And Bunny Shaw said that, like, and Viv said, she just wants, when she gets the ball, she just wants Bunny to go. And Bunny, it seems now, has that instinct where she just knows, find the space and Viv will find her. And that's going to be quite an exciting. Do you remember the Sam Kerr, Fran Kirby season where they were involved in something like 52 goals together or something ridiculous like that?
Was that Sam Kerr?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Kirby, do you remember?
Kirby,
yeah. And that feels like it's generating
there was also
into that.
Wasn't Kirby and Backman as well? They had a really good...
Oh, that was a long time ago. God, I can't remember all of that back then. But I just feel like it's developing into that kind of dynamic duo. Finally, last but not least, Liverpool, London City, last game of the weekend. I listened to this one as well in the car on the way home. It didn't sound like the most exciting game.
I mean, it wasn't the most exciting game.
Neither team had a shot on target.
No.
Do you know what though? It sounded like Liverpool maybe edged it and deserved to get something out of it.
They created 7 opportunities. I think they were really missing Beate Olsen up front. She's obviously been in brilliant form for them just before the end of the year. Had a niggle, I think, that kept her out, and she's been such a good focal point, not just in terms of the goals, but in terms of her pressing. And I think Gareth Taylor's talked about her pressing ability before and how she's so good and how she sets the tone for the team from the front. And you could clearly see they were kind of missing that player.
Alice Bergstrom sounds to be a good signing. She was getting in and amongst it and causing problems. And of course, we have to mention the fact that London City Lionesses had their new manager yesterday. And they want to play like Spain. No, I'm not saying that. They want to have that kind of Spanish flair, which is very ambitious given you need the players to play that kind of football.
Again, I'm going to qualify this as nothing about Ida, who needs to be given a chance to do what he needs to do with the squad, but I will just have to say that was incredibly harsh on Jocelyn Pressure before the break or during the break. When the news broke, I don't really understand what they really expected from London City.
I think it was always in the plans. I genuinely, because I can't wrap my head around, I can't see that you look at the season and go, yeah, he needs to go. It feels like they'd gone, let's get him to get them up to the WSL, steady the ship while we put the feelers out. Yeah, but it still doesn't make it any less harsh.
No, it's really harsh. He did a really, really good job. I always thought he was a very good tactically minded coach. I thought he set them up really, really well. Got some really good results at the start of the season. Yes, there were maybe a couple towards the winter break where they fell off a little bit. That's going to happen with every new team into the division. It's just a part of the growing pains of the whole process. You aren't going to win the league overnight. It just doesn't happen. In the rare occasion it does, but it generally just doesn't happen 99% of the time. So you need to have those expectations, and I do feel that was a really harsh sacking. Very,
very unexpected. So yeah, they'll be annoyed by that, and I think he needs time, as you said, to settle in, definitely to kind of implement that style of football that they want. I think, having a second half of the season to kind of find your feet and figure out what the team needs in order to deliver that is probably beneficial. It gives them a summer window, which I'm sure they're already thinking about, to then try and kick that off next season. But Jocelyn Pressure has definitely left the team in a very good place for him to take over. So yeah, it was a surprise. On the Liverpool front, Gareth Taylor has said that they're definitely looking to be busy in this window.
They need to. They bought in
Jennifer
three already have come in, but they do. I mean, the window last year, summer window, was not nearly good enough. Mainly a multitude of things, maybe the board not stepping up, but also Taylor coming in quite late, so he couldn't find the players that he wanted. These things happen windows in advance, and when a new manager comes in, it's always difficult to find the players that he wants for his style. And he has to have a few windows to be able to do that. So they need to recruit. They need to recruit well in all positions, I think.
Yeah. Depth is what they need. So definitely want to keep an eye on. But Jennifer Falk came in, very experienced Swedish goalkeeper, and she was between the sticks for that game. Even got herself player of the match with 0 saves to make, which, I mean, sure. I do think Jenna Clark and Grace Fisk Sound like they had very good games as well, and probably were in with a shout of that. Gareth Taylor has gone back to his previous hairstyle as well, so I think he's gone back. He's moved away from the kind of curtain split down the middle back to his kind of like quiffy type vibe. So maybe that signals a change in fortune for Liverpool. You heard it here first. I will clip this up if that happens. Okay, very quickly, can you give me your player of the week, please?
This one was hard for me, but I think I was going to go for. There are a few standouts, but I think I was going to go for Carolyn. I'm probably repeating what I've just already said, but I do think the way that she impacted the game, she added so much pace down that right side. Obviously, Fagino was out injured, and she's been brilliant for Manchester City, so, boots to fill in that area, but she came in and slotted in perfectly and showed exactly what she can do, and to get a goal this early in the year as well, do her wonders for her confidence, and she's only going to go up from here as she builds those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, standout moment. Again, probably repeating yourself, apologies.
I'm repeating you now. I'm going to go with Kirsty Hansen's goal against Brighton. I just think that she's been in some form this season. That was her 6th WSL goal. And, she had a bit of a rough season maybe last year, wasn't getting so many minutes. And to come in and hit the ground running, and she really adds something to that Aston Villa attack, that the pace that she has, her ability to score from wherever, it was an absolute corker of a finish as well. And I'm not sure what the celebration was.
Yeah, me neither. Let us know.
I want to explain Kirsty too, but they seem to be having fun.
Okay, quickly, we're going to run through WSL2, which won't take long because only half the games are on. Durham versus Sunderland, Ipswich versus Charlton, and Newcastle versus Durham. No, that's not right. That can't be right because Durham can't play 2 games. Thank you. It was called off because of the storm that we can't remember the name of. Yes, the snow. Did you see the pictures? They're absolutely covered. Oh my god. Those that did survive: Southampton 4, Portsmouth 0, the South Coast Derby, as it was labelled. Very good win for Southampton. Nottingham Forest 2, Bristol City 4, and Sheffield United to take on Crystal Palace tonight. It is currently 0-0 at half time.
It was a huge win for Bristol as they try and, because obviously the top 2 go straight up, the third place go into that playoff thing with the bottom team in the WSL. So everything's quite tight. Charlton are leading the way at the moment.
Shall I tell you how tight it is?
You can do, but I was just going to say for Bristol, I think it's a really fun time for the club at the moment. Obviously, Mercury 13 coming in, adding a lot of investment. They will do. Jessie Gill hit the ground running, made that. She was on loan at Portsmouth where she was doing so well, and then switched on loan. She's an Arsenal Academy player. Switched on loan to Bristol City and scored in her first game. So big shout out to her.
Very nice. So yes, it's kind of hard to see how it affects the table given half the games weren't played. But if you stay with me, Charlton remain on top on 27 points and 11 games played. Birmingham City are below on 22 points with 11 games played, and Bristol City are in third, also on 22 points, but with 12 games played. Newcastle are nipping at their heels in fourth on 19 points, but only 11 games played. And down the bottom, Ipswich remain somewhat adrift on 5 points with 11 games played, but Portsmouth, who are above them on 10, have played an extra game. So
Ipswich have been had a bit of a tumultuous winter, December. Obviously Joe Sheehan left, departed the club, so there's a bit of change there. They've announced a interim manager, but not a permanent manager yet, so a bit topsy-turvy at the moment.
One to keep an eye on. We've kind of touched on the transfer window quite a bit throughout this conversation, but who has impressed you most?
Tottenham.
Unbelievable.
Easy. Gone out, got the business done early, obviously knew exactly who they wanted, and
I'm sure there's more.
I've made no bones of the fact that they wanted to sign players and do it very, very quickly. And this window is always a strange one, and you probably won't see a lot of the action until the last few days.
Keep us all guessing.
It always is the way. You think the likes of Chelsea will be active as well, Arsenal will probably be active as well, but those kind of deals sometimes happen a bit later.
They've kind of got the not luxury now, but there's obviously the FA Cup, and then they don't have a game until the end of January. Yeah. So, because you'd think some teams would get them in now. Now.
Especially for a team like Tottenham, even United. Mark Skinner was saying, the first half of the season we had 3 days between games. You don't get training with them. You have a couple of on pitch sessions. You get more meetings doing tactical work. this is the period of time where they can really work on the training pitch and get things in for the next 6 months.
Okay, well, it's definitely one to keep an eye on, and everyone keeps tipping it to be the busiest January transfer window yet. So do follow Sophie's transfer tracker. She puts a lot of work into it. Okay, very quickly, we've obviously got the FA Cup 4th round this weekend. We are aiming to cover 4 games.
Please, weather, hold up for us.
This weekend. We're hoping to do West Brom versus Everton, Newcastle versus West Ham, Sunderland versus London City, and AFC Bournemouth versus Manchester City. Fingers crossed we can do it. Any other business? Anything I've forgotten? Because we always get told that we didn't talk about something.
Laura Kaminsky is now the SK brand manager. Congratulations, Laura.
Love that for her.
Great hire. Also quite funny. Well, not funny, haha, but like funny, just odd.
Who's she replacing?
Leif Smerud.
Who replaced her?
Leif Smerud.
Okay.
Like, strange.
Yes, I'm sure there's something we've forgotten to mention. Apologies, this has been a long episode, but no doubt we will cover it again next week. Make sure again that you are subscribed and follow us across our socials as well, so you don't miss anything, especially our very busy FA Cup weekend coming up. We'll chat to you next Monday about all of that action. See you then.